I was telling this story that explains all these historic mysteries when my account blew up. The feedback I got was to get on with it. So I've decided. While on YouTube, I came across a video that was discussing the serpent walls of North America, and I couldn't help but notice that the wall was made up of all these stones that looked familiar. And I realized that very likely the natives picked up and used these stones for those building projects. I thought, oh my gosh, what if that's the source of the megalithic sites in Europe? A quick search kind of yields the same results. This made me realize that this is bigger. And around the same time, I was working on a video where I was going to try to discuss these general shapes. And it felt really stupid because I was just going to show you guys a bunch of shapes and be like, look, see, it kind of looks the same, doesn't it? And in doing that, I decided to actually lay out one of these as if it were a blueprint. And I chose a triangle, and I noticed immediately that it was 40 degrees. After checking the other triangles, I realized that they are either 40 or 60 degrees. There's no in between. And it's just like right on the money. In the end, the key takeaway is this is how we're going to identify this. They are either 20, 40, 60, or 80 degrees. There's really no in between. Now that I was armed with that information, I chose to travel to Europe. The place that I chose was Sicily. Immediately arriving at the B&B, started looking through the flower beds, and the little Italian kids were obviously interested. The kid was asking, what are you doing? I was trying to explain, I'm looking for Stella and Serpenta. Right. There, I find one, and this kid's like screaming at me, Serpenta, Serpenta. And I'm just like, yeah, kid, Serpenta, like, go away. And he keeps screaming, and I slowly roll this thing over, and it's a flipping serpent. I didn't even notice the more obvious face on the opposite sides. When I had some time, the first thought is go to the beach. And I quickly found all kinds of stuff. The predominant thing was these triangles, these 40-degree triangles that seemed to be everywhere. As I was finding the things that I knew were associated with my culture, I also kept finding markings and stuff associated with these other modern materials that were laying around. And I eventually put together that the majority of the materials that are laying on that beach are ancient. Also on this beach, you notice those fine mill marks on these stones are very much present. The best example is this one. On the front of it, you see what appears to be a hexagram and some other, faint markings. But when you roll that thing over, you can see those same cuts that are present all over the world. And as I glance over these items, some of them look like things that we see in Göbekli Tepe or these other sites around the world. And that makes sense that it looks like the other sites because at this point, I have connected a culture that is in North America to whatever is happening there in the Mediterranean. So if I'm seeing this stuff in the other parts of the world, it's likely it's just the same stuff. All that happened pretty quickly on the trip, and I was actually really satisfied. I hopped on Google Earth to see if I could see anything else going on in the area, and I quickly found a new geoglyph that nobody has ever seen before.